like strategy-wise, I think there's more to it.
I mean, if you look at it, right, I've worked with Eric for 6 years now, and 7 almost, right? And I've learned a lot from him personally. I mean, he's a great technologist first and foremost, and as a result, he's a great role model for 6 years ago I was a starry-eyed kid, doing stuff, and there are lots of people like that,
Yeah.
right? So it's actually great to work with somebody like Eric because first and foremost, he's a great technologist, and you get to learn a lot by working with people like Eric.
He understands the chessboard.
Exactly.
And he's playing the poker match at the same time. So this is what's going on. I mean, it's a rapidly growing market right now
It
on
is.
all levels, the
At all
infrastructure.
levels,
So it's challenging. So the question I have is, there's no question you guys have rapidly moved from a number 2, far behind Cloudera, coming out of Yahoo, but the expertise was a deep bench. That's well documented, we talked about it. You guys also kind of changed your tune a little bit on the mojo, like, hey, we're not fighting Cloudera, we're collaborating. And that was it's always kind of been that way, but the press tried to create something there.
I mean, it's understandable. I mean, that stuff sells.
Well, that's what the
right?
press wants.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
page views, right?
Yeah, I don't blame people for that, but even if you went back to Eric's keynote last year, right? Essentially, his message was, if you want to work in Apache Hadoop, you're going to be a friend of Hortonworks, right? And that's the bottom line. We all understand that if this platform doesn't go anywhere and it's all stuck in fighting or whatever it is, at the end of the day, we all survive when Apache Hadoop does well. So as a result, I think everybody understands, that we've got to work together. We've got to take this platform, make it better and better and better over time. Because frankly, I mean, Hadoop has been around for 6 years. We'd like to see it be around for 60 or 100 or whatever it is. So it's going to take time to mature.
Well, it's clear it's clear that everyone wanted to see, as you guys come out with your GA product, Hadoop data platform, what's your move, right? So your move's pretty clear, it's pretty obvious. 100% all in on the technology, 100% open source, all money goes towards development, period. Hadoop, Apache, 100%. On the business side, it's pretty specific. Create bulletproof, enterprise grade, quality, OEM deals.
Stable, reliable.
OEM, that's the right word. Business deals with the big guys. And let that be the pull.
Yeah, and we're also talking to a whole bunch of individual customers. They're in the Fortune, 5, 10, whatever you name it. But we feel like this is the easiest way for the enterprise as a whole. I mean, our deals with the big partners, right? We feel like that's the easiest way for Hadoop to actually get real use cases, real pull in the enterprise, instead of knocking doors one by one, right? I mean, we've been doing that knock doors one by one, but we feel with partnering with people like Microsoft and Teradata, we can actually take this technology and make it much more prevalent in a significantly smaller time frame.
Yeah, I mean, we commented, wrote in my blog post that you guys are putting everyone on notice with this disruptive technology, but at the end of the day, the big guys need help, because I don't want to say you guys are small potatoes compared to what they're doing, but in a way, from a dollar standpoint, the revenue that EMC and IBM HP are doing are off the charts. I mean, you're a rounding error in terms of like what they could do in terms of revenue.
We want to change that.
So, but the disruption you're providing in their market is significant. So, I think you guys are creating such a cost reduction of data store and data warehousing that they're eventually going to need to reposition their products. Microsoft, for example, huge risk on the IT side. You got Office, you got their enterprise IT marketplace is so big.
Yeah.
So for Azure to kind of bundle in with you guys is a smart move.
Yeah.
But you guys got to be ready. So talk about the product. So as you guys launched it, why those features you guys announced, the provisioning I noticed was interesting. That's a key thing. And the H catalog. So can you talk about those two products? Why specifically those two?
So, I mean, clearly, let's talk one by one, right? So Embody. The first step anybody needs to do is, install Hadoop, manage it, monitor it. And we've talked about this in the past, right? I mean, our game plan always has been, we want to do stuff in the open. We want to use, we want to put all our code in the open so that there's no, people are not worried about proprietary bits and so on, right? And more importantly, we also want to have open interfaces so that you can interact with, Hadoop, or the whole Hadoop stack. And also, we want to use open technologies available. We don't want to be reinventing the wheel. I mean, of all the things we can do, I'd rather spend time improving HDFS and MapReduce and HBase rather than writing custom monitoring technology, right? That's not a useful way to spend our time.
Let the ecosystem pick that
exactly. Up. Exactly, and we want to be able to integrate with an IBM Tivoli or an HP OpenView, because frankly, at the end of the day, people have invested enterprises have invested millions of dollars in their existing technology, right? Nobody's going to come in and say, our message is not, take Hadoop and throw away everything else you have. That just doesn't work, right? So what we'd like to do is keep Hadoop open, keep Hadoop useful enough that people can also integrate with their existing stuff. And as they see value, they'll, Hadoop.
So you want to work on the core, basically what you're saying, core.
Core, and also make sure that we integrate with, your existing tech, whether it's databases, it's what we did with Teradata and Aster for Edge Catalog. This allows us to actually integrate Hadoop in a very nice, clean way, and a very simple way, which is what we're all about, right? In a simple way into your existing stuff, in existing enterprise technology, so you continue to get value out of your investments while you get a good force multiplier, if you will, with Hadoop out of it.
The metadata is a big message too. With H catalog, I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking the importance of the metadata services.
Absolutely.
And we talked with Doug Cutting about Avro.
Yeah.
We just found out that Sam, ex-Cloudera Labs guy, sold his company to Twitter, is working on some stuff open source in Avro. That whole notion of cataloging out metadata, where do you see that going? Because that's something that developers want. They don't want to have to recode everything over again and embed code in code.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just the developers, but also your tools, right? Your tools don't want to understand where it's on HDFS, for example, because they've been built with certain assumptions in mind. And also at the end of the day, like you said, the developer wants to think in terms of data sets. He doesn't want to think in terms of directories or files, right? You want to think, oh, I have a data set which represents my monthly revenue for July, right? Not this is /foo/bar, whatever, right? So this way, we want to make it easy so that you take your existing knowledge, existing experience, and allow that to Hadoop to actually get much more benefit from Hadoop. Otherwise, it's going to take us, the next, 6, 7, 8 years before people understand this stuff, because frankly, as technology is new, it takes time, right? I mean, every technology adoption curve is that. So we want to be able to make it simple and easy for people to actually take their existing knowledge and experience and use Hadoop in that context without having to, learn a whole new lot of stuff. With Edge Catalog, like I said, one of the interesting stuff is, the way you can now think of tables. The tables could be in HBase. The actual data could be in HBase, could be in a database, it could be in HDFS itself. But by allowing this notion of a table at a metadata level, you can actually integrate all your existing apps without worrying about what do you do when data moves from one place to another and so on, which is actually we've got some really great validation for that in the market. I mean, we're excited about the work we did with Aster, Teradata, on SQL Edge. So there's a whole bunch of work we've been doing, and you can actually expect more of that.
Cool. Let's talk about MapReduce 2.0 or Next Gen MapReduce as it's called. So we've heard it's kind of in the alpha phase at this point, but explain to our audience really what it's all about.
Right. So I mean, if you look at Hadoop MapReduce, Hadoop today, right? You have two essential parts. One is the HDFS, which is the data storage layer, and you have MapReduce, which is the data processing layer. Now, unfortunately, what's happened is if you want to process data in HDFS and you're going to have massive amounts of data in HDFS, your only option was MapReduce, right? Now MapReduce, the programming model, is great for a whole bunch of use cases. I've worked in MapReduce for almost 6.5 years now, and I really like it. But along the way, it's pretty obvious that MapReduce is not a panacea, right? It's got to take the right set of use cases, and not all use cases can be broken down into a MapReduce paradigm, right? So our effort along MR2, or we call it Yarn at this point, is essentially a way for us to take Hadoop and generalize it so that you now have the option to run different data processing applications within your same Hadoop cluster, right? It doesn't have to be limited to MapReduce. Today it could be OpenMPI, tomorrow it could be real-time data processing, day after it could be graph processing or iterable processing. What we're trying to do is essentially generalize the infrastructure of Hadoop to the point where you get much more return on your investment, right? People are not going to be comfortable buying a $5 million Hadoop cluster just to do MapReduce and another $2 million cluster to do something else. If you can allow them to run both apps in the same cluster, it's not only easier for you in terms of a CapEx perspective or OpEx perspective, it also is easier from an operational perspective. You don't have to have two different sets of people monitoring your cluster, or two different sets of tools monitoring your clusters and so on, right? So this way we think that allowing both of these to run in the same Hadoop cluster is a big win for the whole ecosystem. And you'll actually see some of the work we've been doing with our partners to actually show up to see really cool applications which will show up on MapReduce, on Hadoop itself. And that's exciting from where I stand.
Right, so what are some of those applications? What are some of the possibilities that are going to be available to enterprises once MapReduce 2.0 really kind of comes to fruition?
So one really good example is MPI, right? So I want to give a shout out to folks at Greenplum who've been doing this stuff, right? So the essential, if you look at OpenMPI, right, it's one of the classic and well-known MPI programming APIs out there, right? So what this now means is you can take an OpenMPI application and point it instead of today OpenMPI can work with Slurm or Torque or any existing resource managers. So you can now take OpenMPI and instead of pointing to Torque or Slurm, you can point it to Yarn or MR2. And suddenly, without your knowledge as a developer, you start using Hadoop to doing for MPI processing. Okay. Right? So it's actually a really useful way, way for people to start getting more value out of their Hadoop clusters without investing. I mean, frankly, it's almost, if we do our job well, it'll be zero investment, right? You have your OpenMPI app, you're using it with something else, just point it to Hadoop and it starts working, right? And that's a pretty strong feature set, if you will. So that's MPI. So we hope that should be available fairly soon. Then we have things like real-time data processing needs, right? There are a bunch of people trying to solve the real-time stuff. MapReduce is great at batch processing, not particularly so at real-time. But you guys probably saw the Storm talks or the S4 from Apache and so on. We're talking to a lot of people there. There's interest there to take their applications and port it so that it works on MR2. And you actually suddenly, 2 quarters from now, you'll be looking at 7, 8 different apps running on the same Hadoop cluster along with MapReduce. That's actually significantly cool from where I stand, just as a technologist, but it's also great for from the
Talk about some of the other projects. So for the folks out here watching, Arun is the co-founder of Hortonworks. He's a tech geek, he's a developer, he's a part of the core team over there. Talk about the event here for the folks who are watching. They're on Twitter, they're probably looking at the Twitter stream and watching our live stream. But outside of that media, they want to know what's going on. Could you just quickly share the vibe here, the couple of sessions, what's the audience? You mentioned there's some business talk, but there's mostly developer focused all the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the really cool parts about Hadoop Summit is so much of it, given its genesis in Silicon Valley, right? There's so much technology here. It's really nice to be able to get to a place where just behind us, you see a whole bunch of people, showing the stuff they've been integrating with Hadoop, building for Hadoop, or using Hadoop for. But there's also a whole bunch of people talking about how they're going to take Hadoop and improve it, There are also a whole bunch of other people talking about how they're already using Hadoop in their ecosystem or in their production warehouse or whatever it is. And it's really fun to look at these use cases and think, it's kind of blows my mind. When we started on this 6 years ago, we never saw this explosion.
What's the most mind-blowing thing you've seen here at the event?
At the event, I've unfortunately hadn't much time yet.
Or just within the community. Give me more range.
I've talked to a whole bunch of people who are using things like Hadoop and MapReduce to do genetic sequencing, right? What they're trying to do is come with personalized medicine based on you, right? They're not trying to say you're a 35-year-old male, but they're trying to say you, looking at your DNA sequence. I mean, that if you look at the opportunities it provides, it's mind-blowing and awesome, right? I mean, the fact that we can make such a difference to humans as a whole is actually insane from where I stand as a technologist.
How about the most mind-blowing thing you've seen within the community of the code base? Is it NameNode? Is it some of the Avro? Is it Storm? What are some of the cool projects that you go, wow, I love that one, that's got a lot of potential?
I mean, definitely, I'm going to plug Yarn. That's not a surprise, but...
Which one?
MapReduce too.
Okay, got it.
But of course, Edgebase is great. I mean, we see Edgebase everywhere. Big kudos to the community. There's Edge Catalog. I mean, we see a whole bunch of people starting to pick it up. There's also things like S4 and Storm and all these things, which are coming into the ecosystem. It's a really exciting time to be in this ecosystem and see all these technologies being developed. I'm not smart enough to build all of them, but it's really cool to be able to learn from all these guys.
But in the developer community, let's just talk global developer community, from super, like we say with HBase with Todd, the C or machine code to developer frameworks. In between that range of, I would call developer IQ, there's opportunities, right? What are you seeing in the developer landscape coming out of the Hadoop community? Tools, frameworks, you saw Spring, for example, had a lot of success selling to, say, VMware. Is there a framework around Hadoop that is going to be adopted, that's the most traction? And then on the development side, what tools and whatnot is the most popular?
I mean, if you look at the easiest way for things like MapReduce to get used in enterprise, right? I would say things like Hive and Pig are the big ones, right? You'd say SQL is something everybody's familiar with. SQL is something that a whole lot of tools are familiar with, right? I mean, a lot of tools are built with SQL in mind. A lot of tools talk to SQL in the back end, right? So I would say things like Hive and Pig are some of the things we see all the time. And it's really exciting to be in this market to see what we can do from where I stand. I mean, I look at myself as like an assembly guy at this point, if you look at Hive or MapReduce, right? So I look at myself as an assembly guy, and I'm trying to figure out what are the tools I can provide to Pig or Hive, so it makes them better and faster and more efficient. And definitely Edge Catalog is in the same space. Yeah.
So you're an assembly guy?
Yeah.
The hexadecimal is like your second language, debugging registers in the old days. We actually had COBOL reference on the cube earlier. It's like,
that was
come
the first,
on.
right?
That was, I think, describing what, Hive or Pig? I forget what it was. Hive scripts is like writing COBOL. So.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your partnering strategy.
Yeah.
We see there's all the vendors out here that you're partnering with, some open source, some not. How important is that partner ecosystem, kind of building on top of Hadoop? How important is that to Hadoop success, but Hortonworks success?
I mean, frankly, we think of Hadoop success as being very closely tied to Hortonworks success, right? On the other hand, like I said, a whole lot of enterprises have a whole lot of investments in existing vendors. One of the things that really excites me about our partnership with Microsoft is it opens up Hadoop to a whole new ecosystem, right? It's not just Windows as the operating system, but it's a whole ecosystem you get with Microsoft. Whether it's Excel or PowerPoint or SharePoint, right? And by opening that up, the use cases we get, the new set of users we get, is incredibly exciting. Same with our partnership with Teradata. I mean, Teradata is prevalent in so many data warehouses. The fact that we can take HTTP and Edge Catalog and all these components there, integrate well with Teradata, means that not only people get value out of it, but we also learn a whole lot about how how we can do better with Hadoop with our partners. So it's an exciting thing for us in terms of our partnerships.
So you talked about getting more value out of your existing IT investments through Hadoop, through Hortonworks, but what about the potential for overlap? I mean, when you go into a company like Teradata, where this is a long-time data warehousing vendor in the more traditional model, and you come in and you say, well, we've got this new way to process tons of data, it's inexpensive, it's scale out. So you're partnering with them now, but is there some tension there, or how do those conversations go?
I mean, at the end of the day, people are great technologists everywhere, right? I mean, Teradata has been in this business for a long time. They understand the use case that Hadoop is great at. We understand the use case that Teradata is great at. So we are fortunate to be working with them. And at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation for both Hortonworks, for Teradata, and for the customer. As a result, we're very happy working with them.
So again, in terms of this event, we're seeing a good crowd, 2,500, I think, or close to it.
Yeah, close to it.
Fantastic. So looking ahead? So we're here next year. Let's say we're sitting here on the cube. What can we expect to see? What is kind of on your roadmap, your priority list for the next 6-12 months?
So, first thing foremost is we want to make sure that Hadoop, like I said, it has to be enterprise ready. It has to be stable and reliable. So we're spending a whole lot of time adding a lot of the enterprise features like HA and so on. We also invested a whole lot of time in in the future of Hadoop, which is Hadoop 2. We spent work on Yarn. You can expect multiple programming interfaces to Hadoop, MPI or graph processing or whatever it is. So we definitely want. You guys were here last year. I mean, at least in the Hadoop world, right? So you've seen a lot of development in the last 8 months or so. We can definitely expect that to increase. It's exciting that people like Microsoft are investing, so you can expect that there'll be much more engineering investment going on into Hadoop itself. And for me, that's the most exciting part. Sitting as, wearing my Apache hat, it's really exciting to see all these people invest in Hadoop and help make Hadoop better and better for everybody.
So my question is, what should we ask Eric tomorrow? He's going to be in the cube, he's always shy. What should we ask him tomorrow?
ask him, about me.
Okay, we'll do a personal evaluation on you. Okay.
Exactly.
How's his code? Have you reviewed his code lately? He's going to say, you know what, you don't document.
Yeah.
That's because you're an assembly guy, that's why. Arun, thanks for coming on. Congratulations on all your success.
Thanks a lot.
Really proud to watch you guys grow like you have and watch you guys really change and come out as a scrappy startup, really mature, take the high road all the way. It's great to see the good citizenship. And on the product side, you guys are now not a far number 2. I think you're really right behind Cloudera, and I love the approach, and we'll see kind of how this shakes out, and obviously it's pretty clear what you guys want to do, and keep us updated. Thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Again, thanks for having me on theCUBE, from all of us at Hortonworks. It's a pleasure.
Hortonworks is putting on the event. Soon this event's going to be so big they'll have to get rid of it like Cloudera got rid of Hadoop World. Obviously a sellout, the demand is strong. The Apache community is so on fire right now. HBase, HDFS, MapReduce, MapReduce 2, great innovations, and all that's going to be empowered in with big mainstream applications. We're expecting big ecosystem growth. Arun, thank you for coming on theCUBE. We're right back with our next guest after this short break.